Okay, so this is part two. So most of you know about the glycemic index. Basically, it's how foods turn into sugar and how fast they turn into sugar. Jelly beans, for example, turn into sugar fast. Celery has a low glycemic index because it doesn't turn into sugar very fast, okay, because the fiber buffers it. But the point is that people know that sugar triggers insulin. What they don't know is there's an insulin scale. And so I tend to go in a lot deeper than other people when I study this stuff. Like, this is a really good article, but you have to buy them. You have to pay money. They don't give them out free. And then what happens when I get an article like this, I digest every single word of it. I don't just scan it. I actually am taking about at least 10 to 15 words and looking them up. So I have the full conceptual understanding of everything in this article. And then I look at what the summary is, or the abstract online. It's two different things. So unless you take the time to go through this, you're never going to get the truth of what these studies really say. So I learned some interesting things from some of these studies, but I want to share with you something about the insulin index. And that's basically all the non-carbohydrate things, factors, that raise insulin, okay? Like proteins. So protein can increase insulin, okay? Some more than others. Whey protein is very high. Egg whites are pretty high, but if you add the egg yolk, it buffers it. So the more concentrated, the more low fat the protein is, the worse it is for insulin. Wow, isn't this interesting? Because it's the exact opposite that everyone's focused on. They're at the store buying all the low-fat carbohydrates, and they're just getting fatter and fatter and fatter. So we want to take the true data and expand this index and really know all the things so we can stay out of trouble. But protein in large amounts, but I'm not saying don't eat protein, but just make sure that you buy the one that's more fatty. It's interesting, we're coming back to nature and we're basically buying like the whole food. We're not buying a refined food because a lean something, a low-fat something is a refined food, so to speak. So our bodies like the fat in there. And that is why bacon is good. Some of the fattier cuts are really good. You keep the skin on the chicken, keep the skin on the turkey, you know, those type of things. Have the egg as a whole thing. So that's one thing. The other thing is the gastrointestinal hormones, GI hormones. Now, what does that mean? It basically means that, unfortunately, every time you eat, you increase insulin to some degree just by eating in general. And this means that if sustained insulin over time caused insulin resistance, then what we want to do is decrease the frequency of insulin, okay? And we can call it intermittent fasting. We can just call it no snacking. But I like to start off on a gradient that's easy to do. Start off with 3 meals. You should be able to go 3 meals without snacking. If you can't, then we know you have this for sure. And that means that you have to add a little more fat to that food to prevent you from dropping the blood sugars. So fat does two things. One, it satisfies you longer. Number two, it doesn't increase insulin. So it actually heals the insulin resistance. Okay? See, if you actually go on a diet that you're just lowering calories and you're eating all day long, you may initially lose some weight, but you're actually going to slow your metabolism down. And I'm talking about that's because you're constantly irritating insulin, and that's what controls the set point or your plateau. But if you heal the insulin, your metabolism will go up. I mean, think about this. You take some younger people. They haven't had time to diet for many years. Their metabolism is high, and they haven't developed this yet. So if you can understand that, and you could just avoid insulin, you can actually be very successful at not just losing weight, but handling your blood sugars and that cholesterol, because insulin resistance causes high blood pressure, fluid retention, high cholesterol, fatty belly, polycystic ovarian syndrome, decreased testosterone in men and women. The other thing that increases insulin is, and before I go into that, I just have to finish this concept here. 3 meals. So you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If you're not hungry in the morning, okay, and I know I talked about having protein is the breakfast is the most important thing. Well, just shift your breakfast forward into the lunch. So you just have 2 meals a day, if you can do that. Okay, you're just going to lose more weight. So, and then people say, well, what about if I work out? What do I do? Well, why just work out anytime? But the point is that you don't have to eat before or after or during the workout. That's a myth. Okay? You say, well, I better eat because I'm depleting my glycogen reserve. Yes, and so you can burn more fat. So you don't need to snack around your workouts. Okay, if you do, you're just going to kind of nullify the workout. So stick with this. Do 2 or 3 meals a day and try not to snack. Now add more fat if you can't go from one meal to the next. Okay, and that's what I want you to start doing. That's going to greatly help you. Okay? Now the other thing I was going to mention is estrogen. Estrogen, unfortunately, can increase insulin. Now, there's a condition called polycystic ovarian syndrome where a female has more androgens and having acne, hair loss, gut, deeper voice. Yeah, well, guess why? Because the estrogen is triggering insulin resistance because they always have, polycystic ovarian syndrome always has an associated symptom called insulin resistance. But in truth, it's the insulin resistance that is causing the spike in estrogen and then causing the conversion into androgens, okay? So in other words, insulin will trigger estrogen, okay? It stimulates estrogen, and which then converts to androgens and can create a whole bunch of problems, okay? Now, the other thing that I want to mention is not only does insulin cause an increase of estrogen, but estrogen also increases insulin. So they both work together. I just wanted to clarify that because I might have confused you in the time before because I just want to tell you it's like both sides of the story. That's why when a female gets pregnant, they start gaining a lot of weight, not just in the hips, but other places. So this might be all fat here from estrogen, but up here it's or in the gut, it's going to be insulin. And that is why that time of the month you have a spike in estrogen and you can gain more weight. And that's why birth control pills cause weight gain, okay? So too much estrogen is not good for excess insulin. So this can mess this up too, all right? So it's kind of like we just have to fix all these different hormones. In some of the other videos you'll see I show you how to get the ovaries working really good. But by fixing insulin, you could fix the polycystic ovarian. You can also fix a person that gets up frequently at night and has to urinate. Why do you think that is? That's like a mild version of diabetes, where the person is peeing a lot at night. Well, that is this. Once we fix this, they're not going to pee as much. Okay? Interesting, isn't it? So I wanted to share some of these things. Go ahead and apply it. And I have the download, okay, right to this side of me. You can download the information and start applying all these other things. I'm not going to cover everything, but you can consume apple cider vinegar and you can consume all these things to help yourself and improve this condition if you have it. And again, honestly, I think everyone that's overweight has a degree of this. All right? I'll see you in the next video.